That light is what we come from. We are part of that light. It is unconditional love and light. And that is God, that is source, whatever you want to call it. But that's what we come from.
Do you worry about the judgment of others because you're talking about concepts and ideas that aren't always mainstream?
I didn't believe in anything in the spirit world or life after death. It wasn't part of my belief system.
I'll hear things even before the LA fires. My body, intuition, psychic, everything just kept saying, I'm ready to go.
And I hear the most beautiful music. Music you cannot make on the earth plane. You can't make that music on the earth plane.
I mean, you literally can't make this stuff up.
The nurse on my right is quoting my blood pressure, and she yells out, 50/15, hurry. And that's now getting too low to support the heart rate. At that moment, I knew that I was dying.
Hey there, welcome back to Raj with Kate Eckman. Got another fun episode for you here today. Someone that I've never quite talked to in this capacity before. We have a medical medium here. We also have someone who went to medical school at the ripe age of 54 years young. She's really bridging the gap between science and spirituality. And we have so much to get to. I know you're going to gain so much wisdom from this conversation. And I love talking to people who expand my mind and my heart and my spirit and get me thinking and talking about things that I don't get to do every day. So Dr. Lotte Valentin, thank you so much for being here today. It's just such a delight to talk to anybody who is disrupting the status quo, not following the nice, pretty neat path that is laid out for us ladies to do, and someone who is really challenging stereotypes and what it means to be a woman and what it means to do things at a certain age. And you've already given me so much hope and inspiration to really just go for it, whatever that is. And I know you'll offer that for my audience today. So please share with us what exactly a medical medium is and a little bit more about your background and your area of genius, if you will.
Yeah, so I had two near-death out-of-body experiences. And many times people think that a near death is, you're close to being in an accident. But when we talk about it, we really mean that you left your body and you went somewhere else. And my first near-death experience was after I gave birth to my third child. And I was hemorrhaging, like 10 days later, I was hemorrhaging and I was in the ER and it was the third day I was hemorrhaging. It's like divine interference. This nurse comes to check on me at that moment. And this middle-aged man comes running in to the hospital room that I was in. And I could hear that call on the loudspeaker, OBGYN, stack to the ER. And as he comes running in, he says, how much have you been bleeding? And I said, well, this is the third day I'm hemorrhaging. And so he knew that I had lost a lot of blood. And they did a visual exam. And as they do that visual exam, another large blood clot comes out. And I'm trying to tell him at that point that I don't feel too good. So he pushes me down on the table and my head goes towards the floor. My feet goes up to, in the air. And I have a nurse on my right that's quoting my blood pressure and a nurse on my left trying to place that IV. I'm thinking I feel like I'm just falling, like I jumped out of an airplane without a parachute.
Wow.
And the nurse on my right is quoting my blood pressure and she yells out, 50/15, hurry. And that's now getting too low to support the heart rate. At that moment, I knew that I was dying. And it was very different from when I gave birth to my daughter. I actually gave birth between a 7.4 and a 7.2 earthquake. And that was one of those times in my life when I never thought I was going to die this way. But this was very different because I knew I was dying at this point. And the complete atheist that I was at the time, what did I do? I prayed to God to save my life. So I said,
Wow.
I have 3 children under the age of 6. Please save me. They need a mother. And shortly after that, I was just pulled out of my body and I find myself just floating in the ER. And there was no time on the other side. I had access to past, present, and future all at the same time. And that was just...
So you actually crossed over.
Right. Yeah. So I'm out of my body, right? So you're kind of in that limbo state because you're still in the earthly realm, right? You haven't gone all the way to the spirit world, but you're hanging out. So I was in limbo between life and death, so to speak.
Wow.
And I knew that I belonged to that body down there, but the first thing that I thought was, how can I be outside my body and still be me? How does this work? So, shortly after that, I got pulled back into my body. And the next morning, as I'm lying there in the hospital bed, I heard my sister in law, and she said, everything's going to be okay. And she had just passed away 2 weeks earlier. And I'm trying to put everything together that I was experiencing the day before because my belief system wasn't in place for anything like this. I didn't believe in anything in the spirit world or life after death. It wasn't part of my belief system. So then what happened is that I got really, really sick. I had bone marrow suppression. I had no white blood cells, red blood cells, or platelets. I was really sick. It took me a good 6 years to heal from that. And during that healing journey, 2 years later, as I'm trying to heal, and I'm just always feeling like my soul is jumping out of my body. I'm always holding on to my soul. I'm always saying, don't leave, don't leave. We have to stay. And once in the middle of the night, I woke up. This is something that happened all the time. So I would wake up, my head is pounding because I don't have enough blood in my body. And again, I was just pulled out of my body. So, but this second experience is really what activated my life path because I feel like the spirit world was like, oh, she didn't get the full effect the first time. So we got to do another one so she knows why she incarnated into this life. And so it's like I'm tumbling through space. Think Star Wars, like just going through space. And I get to this place that I call the mid station because I had this awareness that you could go higher or lower. Like you go into a skyscraper and you push the button on the 50th floor. You know there's floors above you. You know there's floors below you, but you're on the 50th floor. So I get to this place and I hear the most beautiful music you cannot make on the earth plane. I tried. We had like this Roland synthesizer at the time, and I sat at that synthesizer for a week trying to find one sound that sounded as beautiful as the music I heard. You can't make that music on the earth plane. So I hear this most beautiful music, and I look to my right and I see a little log cabin. And it's so funny, like what we see. I think it's, some people meet their relatives or they see fields of flowers. I see a little log cabin. It literally looked like a Swedish sauna because I was born and raised in Sweden. A little log cabin. I open the door, look inside, but it's empty. So I'm like, wow, where's that music coming from? I look to my left and I open the door, look inside, but it's empty. And then I become aware of this very bright white light. And it's almost like a fog, a deep, like a fog that's rolling in and just surrounding you in this white light. And as I turn around in my spirit form into this light, I see this, it's like an outline of angels. I don't see the angels, I see an outline, like the silhouette of angels, but the music is coming from the angels in this white light. But I'm also aware of the fact that I don't really believe in angels, but I'm still having this experience and I'm seeing angels. But that's just my own skeptical self. If they had showed me something that I believed in, I would have said, that's my mind, that's my brain making that up. I wanted to see that. But I experienced things that I didn't believe in and I didn't have a belief system in place to support it. So that light, though, that light is what we come from. We are part of that light. It is unconditional love and light. And that is God, that is source, whatever you want to call it. But that's what we come from, and we carry that light within us. And then I became aware of two spirit guides. And the spirit guide on my right says to the other one, what is she doing here? She can't be here. And I'm like, no, no, no. Wait a second. How can I be outside my body and still be me? How does this work? And the spirit guide on my left says, well, if I told you, you wouldn't remember. So there's some kind of mechanism where there's some control over what we get to remember, which could explain why some people who have heart attacks and things, and they're actually dead for several minutes, they don't have any memories because they weren't supposed to, like the people say, they got wiped. They are not supposed to have that memory. Anyway, so he says, well, if I told you, you wouldn't remember, but you will remember this. And then it's like I'm standing on the moon looking down on the earth. And around the earth, I see what I call the silvery, glittery fishnet. Well, this was in 1994, so we didn't have Google yet. But now you can just Google grid around the earth and you get a really good idea of what I saw. And the spirit guide says, everything on earth is connected to each other. but everything on earth is connected up to this grid. And with that knowledge, I got sent back. And that's literally what has become my work today, that deeper understanding of, how are we all interconnected?
Wow. It does not fall lightly on me that an atheist then has two near death experiences and you're giving birth during this 7.4 earthquake in Southern California. Then you have these other experiences, and then you're transformed from atheist who doesn't believe in God, spirit angels, spirit guides, any of this otherworldly realm, even a higher power. And now you're being thrust into, went in between worlds, thrust into this new world where then you become a medical medium, an oracle, go to medical school in your mid 50s, and really want to bridge the gap between science and spirituality, which is really, bridging the gap between your old life and identity and this new life and identity. And with the smoke screen, effects in between. I mean, it literally, I feel like you're talking about this character in this really cool film. And I'm sitting here also as you're talking like, gosh, I love my show and what I do and the people that I meet. And this is wellness through truth and storytelling. And I think, what a great example of that. I mean, you literally can't make this stuff up.
No, exactly. I mean, you can't. It is what it is, right? And I had no belief system in place to support my experience. And I mean, it took me 12 years because I started hearing the spirit world the day after my first near death experience while I was still in the hospital. And that just got more and more and more. And it took me 12 years. I'm so skeptical and such a scientist at heart that every time I had an experience and I was told something was going to happen, or I would see things before they happened, I would say it's just a coincidence. It was a coincidence, right? I would just explain it away. And it was just so many of those experiences. And when my kids were, so my daughter is about 9 or 10 years old, and my middle kid is about 12, 13. So it's been 10 years of this. I'm still skeptical, okay? It just took me a really long time. And I woke up one morning and I was shown 3 slides, 3 images. And the first image, I saw this black scratch going across the van door. And we had a van, and so like where the kids get in and out on the passenger side. And then the second image was 2 kids in the car, my middle child, my son in the front seat, and my daughter in the back seat. And then the third image was I'm leaving a note on the windshield of a black sedan car. I'm like, where are the people? Like, what happened if I was in an accident? Why am I not seeing a police car? Why am I not seeing an ambulance? Why am I not seeing people? Like, I'm just seeing myself leaving a note, but obviously there is an accident. So I tell these 2 kids, I say, all right, this is what I saw. And so we go through, so we lived in East Bay, San Francisco at the time. My kids went to school in the city. So I actually drove them because they were too young to take the subway. I drove them to the city every day. So we went through every single intersection thinking, after we cross the Bay Bridge, we get off the Bay Bridge, we go down to the light, we jog left on the city streets. That is the only intersection we can get hit on the right-hand side of the car. So every day we get to this intersection, my 2 kids' noses are pressed up against the windows. Mom, the coast is clear. So we do this for 2 weeks. And then we're in East Bay, San Francisco, in Walnut Creek, and we come out of the garage of our bookstore. And I'm trying to squeeze onto this very narrow street, but that was a truck offloading boxes for the bookstore, and there were cars coming in, and it was this little narrow street. So as I make a right-hand turn onto that street, the right-hand side of my car scrapes the parked car, which is a black sedan car. So at that moment, I just said, oh, this is it. Now I know that black scratch going to look like. So I get out of my car, walk around the car, see the black scratch exactly the way I had seen it. And I just start laughing because I was so happy that after 2 weeks of driving, thinking we're going to be in an accident. When is it going to happen? And that was the accident. And I mean, people were just staring at me. They probably thought I was the kookiest lady they had ever seen. I'm like, my hands are thrown up in the air and I'm just laughing. And of course, there I am leaving that note on the windshield of the black sedan car. So I have many, many stories like this, and I tell all these stories in my book because we are all intuitive creatures. So for me, I had to learn to tune into that, to the intuitiveness of it. And so all these different experiences that then became verifiable, and I could write things down that I knew about people and then I watched it happen or I tried to prevent it from happening. But all those experiences took me 12 years. And I laugh because sometimes I meet people and they say, yeah, it took me 3 years. I'm like, it took me 12. I'm such a skeptic, right, at heart. But I was raised very scientific because my father was a physician. My mom was a hospital floor administrator. I was always surrounded by medicine. So eventually that's what led me, to go to med school. Actually, it was the spirit world that told me to do so.
Wow. And really combining your love and background of science with your newfound, I guess, just appreciation or acknowledgement of the spiritual realm and combining science and spirituality and also becoming this medical medium. I'd love for you to talk about that because that certainly combines the science with the spirituality and that you really consider yourself an oracle and what that really means and how these two mediums really have helped and transformed your life, but how they can benefit all of us, even us listening to what you're saying today.
Yeah, so it's really interesting, right? So I had all these mediumship experiences with the spirit world dropping in, telling me things, for 12 years. And I'm going to start with one day, my kids were teenagers, and I was looking on the computer and I said, well, I can't go back to being a programmer. I was a programming systems analyst in my youth. I have to work in the healing arts of some sort. And I found this degree, and it was naturopathic medicine. And I said, wow, that is so cool. Like, you study all the regular medical stuff, pharmaceuticals, but then you also study botanical medicine, homeopathy, acupuncture, you get nutrition. So your tool bag is so big. And then I realized it was a real medical school. So there's only 5 of those real medical schools that you can actually have that focus. So I just closed my computer. I was in my 40s now. I was like, I can't do this. Even if I do all the prereqs, there's no way they're going to even accept me. So I walk to the kitchen and the spirit world drops in. So this has been going. So this is now year 12. So this is 2004. My daughter was born in 1992. So it's been 12 years of this. And now I trust in the messages because I've had all these crazy experiences where they're showing me things are going to happen and then they happen. So the spirit world drops in and they says, you have to go to medical school and become a naturopathic doctor. And I was like, okay. And they said, but you're not going to work as a doctor the whole time. But you need a degree for the work you're here to do. And I'm like, what work? And they're like, when the time is right, we'll tell you.
And these are voices that you're hearing, just so for people who haven't,
Yeah.
a lot of people, I have experienced what you're experiencing. I don't share it with many people,
Yes.
but when you hear it, you can't unhear it. And they're very clear. And they'll even show me, they'll put everything in all caps. So I know it's them. So for people, just to interject here, that people who are like, what do you mean you heard a voice? And what are you taught? If you could just break it down a little, maybe for people who are like your former self, who don't believe in any of
Yes.
this.
No, it's because you think, in the beginning, I would say that's just my brain. It's just a coincidence. I didn't believe in any of it. And then I started writing down when I would get these messages. I started taking notes or writing down because it was before we could take notes on our phone and things like that. It's the 1990s. So I would write things down and then I knew so I could go back, 3 days later or a week later. Nope, I did write it down. It did happen. It's not my brain playing tricks on me or it's not, a coincidence. So I had that confirmation. But when you get those messages, it's always the first thing that comes through. Once you start thinking about it, that's when the doubt comes in. That's when your brain comes in and it twists
And then you
things
forget
around.
the message. I just got the chills because I got a download for someone earlier. Thank you for saying this because every time I stop and say to someone, I'm getting a download or I'm very intuitive, I'm getting a message. And then a lot of times, Dr. Lott, the message leaves. And so I stopped doing that. I'll just give the message because people don't know whether it's me or spirit and they don't care. They're just like, and every time this happens, people are like, they love the message because I think they feel that how profound it is and that it's coming from this higher wisdom. Sorry I keep
Yeah.
interrupting. I'm getting the downloads too to try to
Yes.
explain it to people. It's
Mhm.
fascinating.
Yeah, and it's just that it could be a knowing too, right? You can just all of a sudden have a knowing, this is it. This is what I have to do. Or you hear that voice, but it's not in your head. It's coming from, it's that there is a difference. It's like if you have a thought, it's your thought, but it's coming from somewhere else. Like somebody's sending a radio signal, like you have a radio antenna in your head and you're getting that signal. So it's a feeling that is coming from somewhere else. It's not your thoughts. It's not inside your head. It's like a signal that's being sent to your head. And you're just this receiver receiving the information. The spirit world then told me I had to write 2 books, and then they said, no, wait, 3. And I have gotten that exact message and the exact wording from 4 professional mediums, 2 in England and 2 in the United States. Same message that I got in 2004. And that I was here to bring healing and messages to the people. And I said, I don't even know. What do you mean, messages? What does that mean? And again, it was just when the time is right, we will let you know. Go and get enrolled. And it was 2 weeks before the community college started up and I could start my prereqs. So I literally started from the beginning with high school advanced placement biology because I was a business major undergraduate, so I had no science classes. And I went to high school in Sweden, so that didn't count. So I had to start from the beginning and then take chemistry, organic chemistry, physics, and all the stuff. And then eventually, applied into med school at 54. But once I was in med school, because I know you asked about the medical medium and how that came about. So here I am in med school. And once you become a third year medical school student, you start going on shift. And in the beginning, you're kind of following the senior people. And I started knowing things about the patients that I hadn't even been assigned yet. So I would get to shift and they would say, okay, you're taking, and I'm making up a name, Susan Johnson. Okay. So they'll hand me the case. And then I would go in and, ask that patient the questions. Why are you here? What's troubling you? And I would have seen that patient. So when I saw the patient, I would have seen that patient before in my meditation, and I would have written down again, writing down, making sure I'm not playing tricks on myself with my brain, because it's easy to say, it's just a deja vu, right? I did that to myself for years. So I learned to write all these things down, things I saw in meditation, things that just came to me, because it was the only way I could really verify that I wasn't just making things up or having deja vu experiences. So it started like that. And then as soon as I graduated from medical school in 2016, I was doing my residency and a new patient would walk through the door and I would hear the spirit world give me a diagnosis and it would say lung cancer. And I'm like, what do you mean lung cancer? So, do the whole workup and then figure out that this patient had cancer in their youth. Patient was now in their 70s, but and it came in for a tickle cough, but didn't cough once during an hour. I spent an hour with that person, listened to the lungs, completely clear. There was not one peep in those lungs. And I said, you're worried about it. You had some spots, cancer on your lungs when you were in your 20s, and they radiated those. I can't hear anything on your lungs because they're clear, but you're complaining of the tickle cough. So let's do an x-ray. Do the x-ray. A couple of days goes by, comes back. What does it say? Most likely lung cancer. So then at that point, I had to hand it over because you have to, go to a specialist. So I handed it over to the integrative oncologist in the clinic. And literally, I think he passed away 3 or 4 months later, but he was the sole caretaker for his wife who had dementia. And by him getting the diagnosis allowed him to put all the paperwork in order, get care for his wife, check himself into hospice, and then he passed away. And it was so hard for me because it was like, that's when the diagnosis started to come through. I would just get a diagnosis. And I was studying mediumship at Arthur Findlay College in England at that point to try and hone my skills so that instead of just getting messages for myself, like how do I work so that I can get messages like on demand for other people? And I was really upset about this particular patient. I said, what was the point of that? Why did they tell me that this patient had lung cancer if I couldn't save them? It wasn't my job to save them. And my teachers just looked at me and they said, well, why do you think that is? And I said, so that I will listen when they speak all the time. And they said, absolutely right. And so going forward, so now my work is, I work a lot as a medical medium or medical intuitive. And I'm going to say, I kind of do both because I always work with the spirit world. I always work with my spirit guides. And so I work mediumistically with patients or clients around the world, but I also work intuitively because I also tune into their bodies. So I kind of work in psychically and with my spirit guides. But many times I have gotten the diagnosis of somebody that's not even on the screen yet. So before I turn on my screen, I'll ask the spirit world, let's say, okay, what's wrong with Diana, the next client? And the spirit world will say, they need surgery, they have endometriosis. And then, they'll start talking and they'll say, I have all these allergies and blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, I know I'm going to switch subject here, but, and then I have to tell them, like, the spirit guide told me that you have endometriosis, and that is the underlying reason. Tell me about your periods. Oh my gosh, my periods are so bad and so painful, and blah, blah, blah. And so many times I get that diagnosis, and I've got many different diagnoses. And sometimes I get a diagnosis, and I said, the spirit guide tells me you have this. Do you know what that? Has anybody ever told you that you have that? And they're like, no, I don't even know what that is. And then I can say, because of my medical education, I can say, well, this disease has these kind of symptoms. So do you have experiences of these symptoms? And they look, and they look at me and they go, yeah, that's exactly my issue. I have all those. So it's really interesting. So now I finally understand what they meant back in 2004 when they said, you're not to work as a doctor in a clinic, but you need the degree for the work you're here to do. But
Mm.
now I understand that my work here is to work spiritually with people as a medical medium, as a medical intuitive. But I also have the education and background, and I understand what it is that I'm saying versus somebody who doesn't have a medical education, right? They serve a purpose too, but it's very different. I typically get a lot of people that are falling through the cracks. They're not feeling well. They've done all the lab tests, they've done all the workups, the ultrasound, the MRIs, and nothing shows up. And often those are the people I get. But it's so rewarding because, I can help those people now. But now I understand it's really the combination of having that science background, but also working spiritually with people to create that healing that is just so needed in our world.
It really is the 1-2 punch. And I think to a degree, we all have psychic gifts and powers and can tune in and have some of the clairvoyancy, clairsentient, clairaudient. I'll let you speak about that. But I certainly have tapped into some of these psychic gifts and powers that I feel I was given or tapped into after my love Sam crossed over to the other side. And I think that he brought these out of me and wanted us to be able to communicate in a deeper, more meaningful way and be in tune with this. And I think a lot of people have this, but block it out, don't believe in it for whatever reason, think it's crazy, coincidence, all the things that you've discussed. And that's why I love that it's coming from you, someone who didn't believe. And it took not 12 days, 12 months, 12 years to really get on board here, but seeing this as an asset and as a gift. And I'm curious how you think we can all really own and embrace these gifts. Maybe we're not all going to become a medical medium or a psychic medium or do any of this or give anybody any of the thoughts that we're hearing. We won't share those with anyone but ourselves. But I think it is a gift. I think for me, it's gotten me ahead of certain situations in the business world. Or again, I'm like, my brain says this person's really nice, but my body and my mediumship and my psychic abilities are saying, stay away from this person and showing me things about this person. And so it kind of goes against how I was raised of being a nice girl when my whole body is screaming and I'm hearing the messages loud and clear that I write down about what's really going on with this person. And it can be scary to experience, but then also lonely because I could call you up now, but there's most people you go to with this, they'll be like, you're crazy, or like, do you really believe that? Or what are you talking about? So it can be very lonely and isolating as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Because, and like you said, everybody has this ability, right? We are intuitive creatures. We all have intuition. We've all had this feeling, I shouldn't do that, or I shouldn't take that road. And then there's an accident or backup, right? We're all intuitive creatures, right? And, but it's just a matter of always listening. It's like fine tuning that antenna. And I'm going to say the best way to become more intuitive is to create that silence within yourself, because it's like if you're watching the television, let's say you're in college and you're in your dorm room watching television, but everybody's having a party that night. You keep turning up the volume because you can't hear it, right? But once everybody finally goes to bed and it's quiet, you can turn the volume way down and now you can hear it. That's the same thing when we are communicating with the spirit world. We have to go into that quiet space in order to fine tune that radio signal so that we can hear what lies beyond. Because we are human creatures and our nervous system is going to keep us aware of everything that's going on. And if you're lying on your bed meditating, you are still going to be alert, because if there is a fire in the kitchen, you better notice it because you got to get out of the house. So your body is never going to turn off. It's always safeguarding you. It's always trying to keep you safe. So a lot of people that start meditating, they get frustrated because they say, I have so many thoughts. I think of the grocery list. I got to do this. I got to do that. That's just normal. You just say, okay, I see the grocery list, put it aside. Oh, I see the grocery list again. I put it aside. And it's just the more you practice that, the less you're going to be interrupted because our minds are very busy. And everybody figures out the best way of doing that, sitting quietly in the garden, lying down on the bed, listening to meditation music or a guided meditation, and you just have to figure out what works for you. What works for your friend doesn't necessarily work for you. But you have to create that quiet. The only way to improve your intuitive and mediumistic skills is through meditation. So it is like the bridge, the portal into the other world is when you meditate, because that's when you create that stillness within you. The more you meditate, the easier it is to connect. So it just becomes a practice. After many, many years, you can more easily tune in. In the beginning, you might have to meditate an hour before you feel like you're becoming intuitive. But as you do that for years, you become more intuitive automatically, I'm going to say. So you just pick things up.
Yeah, I think working with people like you can also bring our gifts out, and the more you practice it. And I think the more that we really own and honor it as a power and as a gift, as opposed to anything else. Because for me, I've become more practiced at listening. And I understand why some people block it out. First of all, people block it out with all the distractions, the numbing and suppressing, and all the things. And a lot of people, I'm not in this group, do not want to sit quietly in a room alone and really reflect and process. But I'll hear things even before the LA fires. My body, intuition, psychic, everything just kept saying, I'm ready to go. I'm ready to go. Almost, I look at it as like, I don't have kids, but like my little 7-year-old self, it's like, you're at a party and your kid's like, Mommy, I'm ready to go. For me, it's that vibe. And so my little kid, that voice is, I'm ready to go. I'm ready to go. And my brain, my intellect says, I love Los Angeles. Or it's like, it's December and 70 and sunny. What do you mean? And then it's kind of like, oh, I'm saying to my child self, my intuition, like, well, where are we going? And, so there's all those practical matters too. Or someone may say, you have to leave this relationship. And your brain says, well, what about the kids? What about finances? What about what people think? I don't want to blow up my whole life. But your body and your intuition is screaming. So what is your advice for us who we've heard the call, we're getting the messages, we're now writing down, but we're not taking action out of fear or disbelief? I'd love because you were once in that place, I'd love your guidance on how we kind of integrate all of it.
Mhm. Yeah. And so, that goes into, why is it that you're not taking action? Why is that? Why are you doubting? So I'm going to say that goes into now ancestral healing, because there's so many things so many struggles or issues that we have in everyday life that we haven't even questioned why we have the issues, because they're just part, I'm going to say, of our existence. We're just used to it. And some of them are, a lot of it sits in your subconscious mind. But whenever we don't know exactly why, if you're in a relationship or you keep attracting the wrong person, how many hundreds of people have I worked with who say, this is I'm in my 4th relationship. I finally figured it out. And I said, yeah, I bet those first relationships were all the same kind of guy. And they're like, yes, right? Because we keep repeating the same mistakes over and over because of the ancestral history. So we have to take a look at, where did we come from? What was your mom and dad like? Where did they come from? What was their parents like? All the ancestors, and who did what and who had what issues. And whatever is not in ancestral healing, whatever is not resolved by your ancestors, typically traumatic events that they didn't know how to resolve. So on things that we sweep under the carpet, you're at the Christmas dinner and you say, well, let's talk about Uncle Billy. And then your mom turns towards you and says, shh, we don't talk
We
about
don't
Uncle
talk about
Billy.
Uncle Billy,
Well,
which is, I can't stand all the family sweeping everything under the
right?
rug, the avoidance. I'm so done with that.
Right? But all those things that were swept under the rug becomes an ancestral issue. And because it wasn't resolved by that generation and it was swept under the carpet, guess what? It gets passed down to the next generation. And then now somebody who is an offspring is dealing with the ramifications of whatever that issue was. So it's really interesting and we have actually DNA evidence now, of the Holocaust survivors and how They survived the Holocaust, and now they're looking at the grandchildren. And like I know one of the genes was like the FKBP5 gene, and how that is now altered because of the experience they had. So it sets us up. We're spiritual creatures. We carry the DNA of our ancestors. That's one component. But we're also entangled with our ancestors via quantum physics, because if you know anything about quantum physics or quantum mechanics, and the people that won the Nobel Prize in physics a year or two ago, that proved the entanglement of different atoms. So if you have two apples, let's say you have two apples, and then you have another two apples, and then one apple from each pair meets the other. But the other, apples don't meet each other. But those apples that were left behind are now entangled because their partner apple met the other partner apple, right? So you become entangled. So think about how entangled you are, and that's quantum physics. So, but that is also what I see when I work with people in ancestral healing, because when we create healing for ourselves, and I work with a lot of people that have, communication has been cut off. I don't talk to my mom anymore, or my child doesn't talk to me anymore. And when we do these healings, they sign up for like an ancestral healing session. And we go through the healing, and they always end with me taking them on a healing journey with soul to soul communication about the person where this wound is coming from. And it's fascinating. And so many times, 2 or 3 weeks goes by, and I'll get an email and I'll say, guess who just called me? My daughter or my son that I haven't spoken to in 2 years or 3 years. And that is that, like what Einstein calls spooky action at a distance, or maybe we want to say, spooky magic at a distance, because it's magical. Because this one person goes through and creates healing for themselves. But we send healing to the ancestors, and we send healing forward in time. But because that person is changing, other things change around them. So it's fascinating. I had one client tell me, we did an ancestral healing session, came from a troubled kind of background. And she emailed me a few weeks later, and she said, I just had my brother and his family over. And he said, I know something changed with you. I can see that you're healing. And because I can see that you're healing, I have decided to go to counseling. And she almost fell off her chair. And she said, all I did was have an ancestral healing session with you. That's all that changed. But that is that quantum entanglement, that we are entangled with everybody around us. It goes back to that grid that I saw when the spirit guide said everything on earth is connected to each other, but everything on earth is connected up to this grid, because we are entangled. When we do healing for ourselves, that is going to rub off, because we resonated and trained with everything around us, whether it has a heart or not. We resonated and trained with trees and grass and plants and animals, right? And that's actually the heart space. But we are so entangled with each other, and even the ancestors that came before us that we never even met, because we come from that lineage. But when you create healing for yourself, you also create healing for your whole family. I call it the soul family, everybody that's part of your life journey, the ancestors, the people that are here with you in this lifetime, and people that are coming after you. And it's absolutely, it's like miraculous, the things that happen, and how life-changing it is for people to go through this healing. And that's also what I've been teaching at the Shift Network. And I'm teaching a course there right now about this. And it's amazing how, people will tell me how it completely changed their life when they go through. And, we create the awareness. Once we have awareness of why it is that we're struggling with something, we can also heal it. It's just a matter of creating that awareness.
Oh, thank you for your depth and wisdom and combining the spirit with the intellect. It's so refreshing. These are my favorite kind of conversations to have. I can't help but ask, for those of us taking on the ancestral healing, and I would certainly love to do a session with you. It does sound magical. And I've done some where, yeah, you are communicating with someone in the spirit realm, even if they are still living. You're not having that direct conversation that you and I are having. And you do feel things shift. What loving advice or guidance could you give to those of us who maybe still have a little bit of lingering resentment because we're the only ones taking on this work? That isn't easy, as you know, very rewarding, but challenging, sometimes expensive, takes a lot of energy, and no one around you is choosing to play in this ballpark, and you are. And so you're seeing some rewards, and you want these rewards for your relatives we all want is the people we love to be at their best, and they're just not interested or willing for whatever reason. And we feel ourselves moving further and further away from loved ones, even because of this. We're getting better, but then our relationships with them don't feel as connected. I would just love, because I think it's not just me, and I always put myself and my business out there on my show, but I think that's why some people resist taking this on, or they don't believe in it, or it would have to unravel too much and too many stories in their own lives that they just don't even take it on. I would just love to hear your thoughts on this for all of us to do the work, to keep it going, and if ancestral healing is for everyone.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to say the number one thing to remember is think about yourself. What issues are you struggling with? What would you like to change in your life? Are you happy in your relationship? Are you happy with your job? Are you happy in life? Are you doing the things you love? Or do you wake up every morning and go, oh my gosh, I can't believe it's another day. It's Monday, right? Or are you like, it's Monday. Oh my God, I can't wait, to
Yeah.
do my work. So, but if you're not waking up and you're not excited about your life, start looking in the mirror and say, what is it that I'm not happy about? And how can I change that? Now, sometimes it seems impossible, right, to change. I can't change because it's going to cost too much money, or if I separated from my partner, I wouldn't be able to support myself and he's not going to give me any money, right? Or you have all these different issues. But the truth is, only you are in charge of your life. Nobody else is in charge of your life. Your life and the way you are living your life is up to you. You are the decision maker. You are the pilot of your life. And when you decide to do things, seems impossible at times, things somehow work out. Okay. They just do because you're doing the right thing. The spirit world is ready to support you. They're like, oh my gosh, look at that. Mary finally took that step forward and she's going down the path, and she thought she wasn't going to support herself, but let's get her this job. Let's make sure she gets that job. And I'm going to say, this is the spirit world working in the background. We can't see that because we're in this little human body with a very limited little brain, having this human experience in our body suits,
Yeah.
right? And we're just kind of plugging along. But we truly are in charge of our life. But it's just a matter of, taking charge and saying, I'm going to change. I don't like this the way it is. I don't like how I'm unhappy in my relationship or whatever it is. I'm going to change. We can't change our family members. Let's say you had a mother that just wasn't able to see you and hear you, maybe had been verbally abusive, or maybe had some kind of substance abuse. She just couldn't be there for you, at least not the way you needed her to be. And many times, all the hurts and things that we stuff down in childhood, we hold all those feelings in our body, right? But the truth is, we would like them to come out and say, I am so sorry for the way I was when you were little. I should have known to be a better mom, or I should have been, known to do this for you. Most likely that is never going to happen, right? Because they can't change. But you incarnated to be the healer. You're the one who says, I can change it. I can change my life. I can be in charge of my life. I can be happy in my life, and I can heal myself, where you can send healing to them. And many times when you do the work and you're the healer, you will see a shift in them, and there's something that changes because your frequency changed. And just do that radical acceptance of that's who that person is, and they're never going to change. And I'm fine with that because guess what? I'm happy. I'm happy with me, and I'm happy with what I'm doing. And I can see the issues that my mom has, or my brother, or whoever it is. And I know I can't change them. They're on their journey. They might have incarnated to have this experience because I'm going to say we all come with a little bit of a movie protocol of our experiences and that we're to have in this life. And I know that a lot of my own experiences are in my astrological charts when I have worked with astrologers, and they'll say, yes, July 10th, 1992, you had a near death experience.
Wow.
I can see it in your chart. It was supposed to be on that day because the planets were lined up in the specific way, the same way, when you were born, and all these different things. And it served as a memory for you to why you incarnated into this life. You had to have an out of body experience to put yourself on this path and become spiritual and work with people in this fashion. And many other, things are in my chart. Is in my numerology chart, it's in my astrology chart, it's in my Mayan calendar chart. It doesn't matter who I work with or who I've had looked into, but it all comes back to the same thing. This is who I am. This is what I incarnated to do. And I think to a certain extent, we incarnate to have an experience. And when you look at your relatives, well, if you had that mom that couldn't see you, maybe she incarnated to have this experience. We don't know why, but she's learning something about being this way in this life. And that's probably in her chart somewhere. And then you came in to create healing. You said, hey, I'll take that sticky note. I always like the sticky note analogies, like you're at the cafe up in the spirit world and you're like, hey, give me number 475. I'll take that one. And then I'll take number 33. I can resolve that one. And you incarnate into the earth and you have all these sticky notes on you with all these different issues you signed up to resolve. And you're like, okay, fix the relationship one, fix the mother one. And you just literally peel off your sticky notes as you go through life and resolve each of the issues you incarnated to have. Now, what you eat for dinner is probably not in your chart, but I'm going to say from my own experience, what I have learned is that all those big experiences that I've had are all in the chart. So there must be some kind of a movie script running in the background saying, you're incarnating to have these experiences in this life.
Yeah, and then there is free will with it. And I think what's so powerful is when we go through things that some would, label as catastrophic or negative or heartbreaking. And while that may be true, we can take it as an opportunity to grow and to heal. And I think me, growing up where I was told things were black when they were white or white when they were black, for instance, I've always been this seeker of the truth. And now I'm doing a show that is about truth and storytelling and getting to the bottom of things and asking deep questions to get deep answers and not believing everything I hear, whether it's family or society, wherever we grow up in the world, especially what it means to be a woman and what choices we have or don't have and how we act or don't act, and to question everything. And so I think when we can look at even this gentleman that I dated and how he tried to destroy me. And I think, wow, but I use that as a catalyst for great transformation and growth. And so I'm so grateful despite how painful it is. And I just invite everybody to start looking at their circumstances in this way, and that, our relationships are assignments and our family members and romantic partners and friends are our teachers, but it can be daunting. And I think that's why it's so healing and helpful to have these conversations and to get advice and knowledge from people who were once non-believers. Because as you're talking to, I'm so on board. I love this. I'm into it. And part of me, this is an old pattern. I'm like, just who cares? Block that out. But I can't help but think or ask, do you ever judge yourself, or did you judge yourself, or do you worry about the judgment of others? Because you're talking about concepts and ideas that aren't always mainstream or that not everybody understands or wants to understand. How do you kind of grapple with that, if at all?
Yeah, I'm going to say I used to. When I graduated from med school in 2016, I was petrified because I said,
Oh,
"Oh, I can't tell people. I'm getting all this spiritual, knowledge about my patients and all of that." And by 2019, that was it. I was out in the open, and I said, "Nope, doesn't matter. Don't care what you think. This is who I am. I know this is my work. I came to the world to help people find themselves, find their true selves, step into their own power." And it reminds me because I do this session, when I work one-on-one with people, I have a session that's called Messages from Your Spirit Guides. And I think that's fascinating because I didn't even know how to draw. And when I was studying mediumship at Arthur in the college, they said, "Oh no, you have to draw." And I'm like, "No, you don't understand. I can't draw. I draw stick figures. I always wanted to know how to draw. I can't draw." And my teacher would say, "No, you have to draw." Anyway, in 2020, during the pandemic, I took this class online because it was the pandemic with Arthur in the college. And she said, "All right, we're going to draw what we see in the spirit world." And I'm like, "I can't draw. This is going to be fun." So she draws on her easel, on her book, and I'm watching on screen. I can see the face before she's even drawn any features on the face. I already know what the face looks like. So I was like, wow, this is crazy. And then I'm trying to follow along, right? I've never drawn a face in my whole life. Like, I'm totally honest when I say I drew stick figures because I did not know
Same.
how to draw.
Same.
And anyway, so then I draw this face. I just copy what she's doing. I'm like, wow, it's a face, right? I'm surprising myself. So then she goes, all right, I'm going to put you in groups now. I'm like, I'm supposed to draw now? Like, that was it. That was my lesson. So she puts us in group 2 to 2, and we had to draw a spirit that came in. And many times when you're working, when you're training in mediumship, it's often your relatives that come in. So I'm working with this woman in Denmark, and I'm just drawing, and I'm laughing, and she's like, what are you doing? I keep erasing. And I said, the spirit keeps telling me. I said, I thought it was a man. I'm drawing a man, but now I keep hearing I have prettier lips. My lips are prettier. And I'm trying to make the lips pretty. And she starts laughing, and she goes, I know who it is. And I was like, you do? And she goes, yeah, it's my dad. And she says her dad, he was very good looking, but he had very pretty lips. And so right away we knew it was her father. But now when I work with messages from spirit guides, the first 5 minutes I tune into the spirit world and I see the spirit guide. And then in 5 minutes I sketch the spirit guide. And then I'll know a lot of things about the client, because the client is kind of a reflection, almost like a mirror image in some way. They don't look like the spirit guide, but what they're here to learn and know or do is a reflection of the spirit guide, because the spirit guide is an expert in what that person is here to learn in this life. So it's absolutely fascinating. And I think some of the funniest stories is, once I had this guy on the screen, and he was a kind of petite man and little round glasses. And I said to myself, this man must be like an accountant. This is like the classic idea of what an accountant would look like from like a movie. And that spirit guide kept saying, I'm a warrior. I'm like a Viking. I'm a warrior. I'm like, this man, this will be the day he's not going to understand this. So anyway, tell him, I said, so your spirit guide he's a warrior. He fights, he goes after everything. He wants justice in the world. He's like a Viking. You drop him off in the woods, he can live there for a week with just a knife. Like, he's the warrior. And he starts laughing and he goes, I'm a retired police officer, and yes, I am a warrior, and I'm still fighting for a lot of corruption and things like that, even though he's retired. So he was completely spot on, right? He didn't look like the spirit guide, but that is who he was. But that is what comes through every single time. It is the messages. And many times people are at a crossroads and they're thinking, do I go in this direction or that direction? What am I really supposed to do? And that's very fascinating, because the spirit guide always has, sometimes the spirit guide will say, oh, this person is doing this and doing that, and it's a healer, and they're here to counsel people. And also this person is writing a book. The book is not written yet, but it's coming out. And I'm saying, the spirit guide says that you're writing a book. Are you writing a book? And they'll be like, yes.
Wow.
So it's fascinating, right? Because it's mediumship with the person's spirit guide. But it's such a fun, I'm going to say that is my most fun session, because it's very fun to know who your spirit guide is. And I'm going to say we have a team of spirit guides, but the one that comes through is the kind of the main spirit guide. It's the one that's always with you, that's always helping you along, making sure you're learning the lessons you're learning in this life. And they're like your best buddy. They're always with you. They're always there. They're your companion in life. But people don't even know that they have that. They have power animals. They have spirit guides. We're surrounded. We have our ancestors. And even the ones that were mean to us when we were alive, they're nice now because they're in the spirit world. Even those people that we might think that person would never support me. My uncle was so mean and he never talked to me and blah, blah, blah. But when they go to the spirit world, they become your support. Your ancestors hold your back, and they're always there to support you, as are your spirit team of spirit guides and power animals, etc. So we're surrounded by helpers all the time.
Yeah, and you can believe or not believe, but I choose to believe. I mean, it is like God or anything else, and whatever, God is not religious to me. God is love to me, and that ever-present force who loves me. And I just choose to believe in these things and then do the research and, like science, like learn even more to help myself and to feel less alone. And it's for me, it's an empowerment tool. And it's, again, I get ahead of kind of what's happening here in the 3D world because I'm in tune with higher dimensions and getting those messages and taking them to heart. And it really is, I think all of us could trust more on our journey, surrender and trust. And even I'm great at trust. And there's moments where it's like, are you really trusting? Because you're freaking out a little bit here about some of these material things. And so it is that good reminder. When I hear your journey, Dr. Lotte, I think reinvention, I think courage, I think otherworldly, I think brilliant, I think fresh start. I mean, so many incredible words to really describe your journey. And I think what you can offer so much hope to people is that I think a lot of people feel stuck on their journeys because of their age, gender, socioeconomic status, whatever. And you have really proven that you can switch course at any time. You can choose again. You can have a whole different belief system. And that really helps you fulfill your purpose. So maybe if someone is struggling out there, or maybe like they're killing it in their career, but relationships are struggling or whatever. I feel like everyone is struggling with something now. And I say that lovingly, and I'm one of those people. There's a lot to navigate right now. Your story offers so much hope and inspiration. What is a message that you could share with us in terms of not giving up, or having the courage to choose again, or to even embrace a whole new perspective?
I'm going to say life is like a roller coaster. Sometimes you're at the top and sometimes you're at the bottom. But when you're at the bottom of that roller coaster ride and you feel like, what's even the point? Why am I even here? Everybody goes through these moments in their life. And just remember that nothing lasts forever. This is temporary. When you go through these hardships, it's temporary. Something good always comes out of it. Even when you think, that the world, this is it, we're going to end up homeless, or now we have to move, or it just seems like the whole world is falling apart. Everybody's dying. When I was my third year in med school, it was just crazy. I separated from my husband in January. My dog died. In May, my brother-in-law died. And in June, my cat died. In July, my other cat died. And my uncle died. And then in September, the best friend of the family died. And in November, my mother-in-law passed away. So it was like
I'm
a
so
year.
sorry.
It was crazy. Like everything around me just fell away. Everybody was dying. People that I thought was going to show up. I was looking forward to my graduation. All these people are going to come, and I love all these people. They were all gone by the time I graduated. They were all gone. So sometimes it's like that, but guess what? It was in my astrological chart. So I'm just going to say, sometimes when it seems like things are not going the right way, or you're wondering what's even the point of all this, you probably just say to yourself, okay, I incarnated for this. It's temporary. Something good is going to come from it, because it's always like that. It's almost like you have to close the doors behind you so that you can open the new doors. So imagine you can only have 7 doors open at any given time. So you have to close some of the doors in order to open the new ones that have new adventures and new things coming into your life. It's kind of like that. So just remember, when you're going through hard times, it's temporary. Something good is going to come from it. It's a roller coaster ride. Try to stay in the present, because that's all you really have. We can all dream about the future, but guess what? You're dreaming about that new car, that vacation, that new house, that perfect husband or boyfriend, but you could die in a car accident tomorrow. So instead of focusing on the future, right, focus on the present. Like, who am I today? What can I do today to make myself feel better? And just keep focusing on, it's that putting one foot in front of the other. It's just this,
Mm.
just this to everything that comes up. I'm just going to apply for this new job. I'm just going to go on this new date. I'm just going to do this, and just take one step at a time, and everything will unfold beautifully, because we're all in a divine incarnation, and everything is perfect in the end, though it doesn't always seem perfect when we're living our lives. But just
Yeah.
trust that it's all going to work out, because it always does.
And just one person, there's this notion too that we have to change a million lives to be worthy of anything. And even just changing one life, if that one life is ourselves, and changing ourselves for the better, and to give ourselves the best chance and potential at fulfilling our life's mission, Just one person and really starting there. I don't want to keep you too much longer. I know we got a lot going on, but I just wanted to quickly talk about clairvoyant, clairaudient, clairsentient, all the clairs, just to give people a little taste of what that is if they don't know, and how we can all tap into our, what are we calling them? Clair powers, our clair,
Yeah.
how do you say it?
Which powers?
Yeah, the clairvoyant, the
Right.
clairaudient, are those our clair powers, or are, how do we describe those?
Yeah. So, I mean, yeah, all the clairs. So, clairvoyant, meaning you're seeing things, get images. So, a lot of my work is I get a lot of images. Then, clairaudient, you're hearing something, right? So, that's that radio signal coming in, and it's not your brain, it's not your thought. It's like a thought that's being put in your head in a different way. And then we have that clairsentient, which is when we feel. And when I work as a medical intuitive or even a medium, doing mediumship readings, connecting with loved ones in the spirit world, I feel it, I feel it in my body. So, for example, I did a reading not long ago, and the person said, I said, okay, so I have your mother. So, it's your mom that's here. It feels like a mom. Do you have a mom in the spirit world? Yes. And then the client said, could you ask her how she died? Because we don't really know, like, exactly what it was. And I tuned in and I said, okay, I'm dizzy. So that's the clairsentient. You're feeling things, right? So I was like, I feel dizzy. So I'm going to say that she had a stroke or something, because I feel really dizzy. And then it kind of ends there. And he said, yeah, we found her on the floor next to her bed. And the doctors say they think she had a stroke, but they weren't sure because they didn't do an autopsy.
Wow.
So, but it's really interesting. So that those things can come through when you're feeling it. Or I'll say, and I feel like this person had breast cancer, because literally, like, I can feel it hurts in my chest or my breasts. So there's something about that. Or I can feel it, I've had this person had ovarian cancer, because I can feel it in my ovaries. So it's really interesting. So you can get the feeling in your body. It's just like when you get the confirmation from the spirit world, you get the goosebumps, right? And you
Mhm.
have, right? It's the goosebumps, and the spirit world's like, yes, you got it. It's the spirit world saying, yes, you heard the message correct. You understand the message correctly. And they goosebump us. And that's also a clairsentient. We feel those goosebumps. And that's the confirmation from the spirit world. So we all have these clairs. So when I work as a medium and connecting with loved ones in the spirit world, I'm going to say 80% is clairvoyance. So I see a lot of images. And I'll say, they're showing me, I did a reading the other day, and I said, I see a child's birthday party. We knew that this was a 19-year-old young man that had passed away. And I said, he keeps showing me like a children's birthday party and party hats. And she's like, she starts laughing. She goes, he worked part-time as a DJ for children's birthday parties. So the images that come through are directly connected. So it's that young man saying, yes, this is it. And then he showed me his sister was also present, that was still alive on this side. And so I said, now he's showing me a pillow, but it's in the shape of a heart. It's like a heart pillow. And she asked the sister, and she said, yeah, I know. We shared a heart pillow when we were children. So,
Oh.
it's just, I know it gives you tears, because it's so confirming. So it doesn't make any sense to me, right? I see the image and I'm saying, he's showing me this. Does that mean something to you? And then, yes, that's a confirmation. And then, the different messages comes through of, what it is he's trying to convey. But it's fascinating because the way we get messages, and then there are other mediums that they've never seen anything in the, everything they do when they work as a medium is auditory. They hear everything. So for me, I'm going to say it's 80% images, and then 10% hearing, 10% feeling. So for me, it's more of a combination of all the different clairs, but some people just have one clair, and that's what they do. And they're super famous people, and they work with that one clair. They feel everything, they hear everything, right? And that's just, I'm going to say, it's just who we are. That's the way the spirit world says, well, Dr. Lotte, you got to give her images, because that's how she sees, that's how she understands what we're talking about, right? But the spirit world themselves also are in tune with who we are. They're learning how to communicate with us. So if you get a spirit that might be better auditory, I'm going to get more auditory during that reading versus images. So,
Mm.
see what I'm saying? Because it also depends on how they communicate. Don't forget that they're also communicating with us from the other side.
Mm.
So we have to, we're connecting with our radio signals. We got to fine tune the signal and figure out the best way that we can get the signal to come across. So everybody has clairs. It's just a matter of figuring out which is your best clair. That's really what we have to do.
And thank you for offering that gift to all of us. What is your favorite part about not only having this gift, but knowing you have the gift, working with it, embracing it, embodying it? What has been your favorite part of this journey and this gift?
Oh, I'm going to say just to be able to bring healing, deep in my heart, that's who I am. And that's what I incarnated to be, is the healer in this life. Just to bring healing to people in one way or another, whether it's through ancestral healing and figuring out what it is that's working or not working in their life, or through medical medium or medical intuitive to create healing that way, or healing with messages from spirit guides, or doing mediumship and connecting with a loved one on the other side. And that's just, what happens. So the way I actually got into ancestral healing was through mediumship readings. I had 4 readings in a row that were almost identical. And I would get the grandmother and I would say, the grandmother had a really hard life and she was actually physically abused by your grandfather. I see that there were a couple of kids. One of those kids is your mom. Your mother married your father, who was also in the spirit world, and he abused your mom the same way her dad abused her mom. And your father was physically abusive towards you because it's showing me that. And the client says, yes, it's absolutely true. And I had 4 readings like that in a row. And after that, I said, all right, what's up with this intergenerational trauma that's being passed along? And that's how I get into ancestral healing, because the spirit world literally guided me on that path and said, now it's time to go over here and study ancestral healing. And so that's how the mediumship is combined with the ancestral healing, which is then also combined with my medical education. So it's just become this very deep integration of my different abilities, but it all comes back to helping people heal in one way or another, whether it's, physically, emotionally, or spiritually.
Thank you so much. And thank you for being courageous enough to go on this path and to do it regardless of age or regardless of your background or regardless of, nearly dying, not once, but twice. I mean, it's so remarkable what you've been able to do and to share with the world and share with us here today. And I'm so grateful. Everybody, please check out Dr. Lotte. She's got a book, Med School After Menopause. I want to talk quickly about that. Science with Soul podcast and ways to work together. It's all going to be in my show notes, but I'd love for you to take us out with ways to connect and one final message that maybe you're getting a little download that we all need to hear right now. And thank you again for being here.
Yeah, thank you for having me. And the best way to connect would be go to my website, drlotte.com. So DRLOTTE.com. And from there, you can see all the different sessions that I offer, and you can just book online. Everything is automated. And also definitely sign up for my newsletter. That's how you're going to stay up to date on the different courses and different events, upcoming events. And my book, Med School After Menopause, is available on all different platforms, on Amazon and Barnes & Noble's, all online platforms, Spotify, Audible. It's on Audible as well. And it is my story in much more detail and all different things that happened along the way. I'm sharing my journey because I'm hoping that everybody else would, realize that it's never too late to transform your life. It's never too late to create healing in your life. And we are all intuitive. And so by learning about my intuitive abilities and how it came about for me, I'm hoping everybody else will also become more intuitive, because that's who we truly are. And we are part of this divine earth, and we are creatures on earth, but we're like a symbiotic relationship. We are creatures of earth. We create carbon dioxide when we breathe out, and the plants breathe in our carbon dioxide. We live here together with the plants, the trees, the animals. So I would say my message to people is to always remember that we are all connected. We are all one. And it is all divine, but so are all of you.
I'm just taking that in. That was beautiful. Thank you.
Yeah, we are all, very special creatures that are all divine. We're all connected. We're all one in the end. It's that reflection of that grid, which is Indra's net, which I'll talk about in one of my courses. So I also have online courses, how to connect, how to tune into your spiritual abilities, a self-study course on my website. because I get a lot of questions. How do I become more intuitive? How do I tune
Yeah.
into my spirit guides?
Yeah.
So that is a great way to, if you want to jump on that one, it's a great way to start learning about what can I do to practice? What can I do to become more intuitive myself?
Thank you so much. It has been such a joy to talk to you. You are such a treasure. I just love and appreciate and respect you so much. You set my soul free, sister. So thank you. My Swedish sister from your German sister over here. People think I'm Swedish until I start talking and they're like, oh, American. So it's such an honor to be with you here and your dog here in the background here
Yeah.
today.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me. My pleasure.
Yeah, it was so great. We'll have to do it again. And thank you so much for being here, especially to the end. I know you got so much value out of this conversation. So thank you so much for being here. We'll see you next time, same time, same place. Have a good day, everybody. Bye-bye.